Eric will be talking to Santi Siri, who is CEO at Democracy.earth, which is governance software for a post-state world, so after the state. It lets organizations do voting, budgeting, and other governance functions on a blockchain. You guys ready? Take it away, Eric.
Yeah, we're ready. So thanks, June. As June mentioned, my name's Eric Turner. I work at a company called Masari, where, as June covered, we just launched a disclosure registry, trying to bring transparency to the crypto asset space. So trying to bring some more accountability to the various projects out there that have tokens. So this is right up my alley, doing something like this. And I think we're going to follow a similar path and let Santi kind of go over the project a little bit and then get into some Q&A.
Sounds good. I'll do a very quick presentation or introduction of the Democracy.earth project. Democracy is broken. I think this is self-explanatory. Voter participation going down all across the world, rise of autocrats everywhere. Social media is breaking democracy. We all know how Facebook interfered, whether they like it or not, in the outcome, not only in the US election, but on every election, how influential they are. And our goal is building decentralized, civil-resistant, self-sovereign identity. We want to formalize humans on blockchains, and this is critical to build a decentralized democracy, or a democracy that can bring on self-sovereign citizens. And this is a very hard problem to address. Formalizing humans on blockchains is becoming an interesting conversation on crypto Twitter. Certainly in the last DevCon conference in Prague, there were a lot of interesting ideas pointing in this direction on how we can signal human participants on decentralized networks. The main reason to do this is that otherwise we are ruled by machines. We need to figure out how to build consensus mechanism that it's really designed around humans. Satoshi, on the original paper of Bitcoin, he specifically writes, one CPU, one vote. That's fantastic. But in order to build governance systems where the priority is the human aspect of the network and not the machine aspect of the network, we better start thinking on how to build one human per node. There's our social smart contract paper, original white paper, it was published in 2017. Can be found on paper.democracy.earth. And our token economics was published in August this year, 2018. It can be found on economics.democracy.earth. We released our software even before doing any token sale. On testnet.democracy.earth, you can experiment with our technology. You can use it in mobile browsers, dApp browsers, where MetaMask, any Web3 plugin will be able to interact with the application. And it's not designed only for our token, but it's designed to provide governance for every token. Our token specifically is labeled as vote. We are trying to understand how to do political transactions on blockchains, not strictly financial transactions. And the goal is to mint ERC 725 identities. ERC 725 is a specification of claims and checkers that helps to build an identity graph on EVM-compatible blockchains. The idea is that people are able to generate a proof that is Turing impossible, in the sense that no machine can parse or analyze that proof. Only another human can validate that proof. I used the example of my daughter, which I did her birth certificate using video. The token is used to build a trust graph. We believe that reputational algorithms like PageRank are useful in order to prevent bad actors in the network, and provide a checker to the claim of, are you a human or not, in a decentralized network. We're issuing 400 million tokens. We are working with CoinList, Perkins Coie, Deloitte, very good companies. And our go-to-market strategy is governance for crypto networks. We already announced our partnership with Blockstack. Blockstack, one of the leading dApp blockchain networks. We are providing the governance over the subsidy that they are giving to their developers. And very soon we'll be announcing, actually I think I'm announcing right now, we'll be doing the governance of Decentraland, which is personally one of my favorite projects in the space, pioneering real estate, virtual reality, and the metaverse. We're also talking with organizations that are serious about delivering crypto to communities in need. In Latin America, you wouldn't believe how many people don't have an identity. There's 65 million refugee camps in the world, people who are being denied their identity. That's why we design our protocol in a way that we can deploy and validate and give human rights. That's what we're doing in communities in need. And we're talking with some projects that are seriously looking, particularly to Latin America. We're working with all of the largest Bitcoin exchanges in the region. Personally, I'm a partner in Bitex. Bitso is the largest exchange in Latin America. They are from Mexico, and Ripio in Argentina. I just got back from Mexico and Buenos Aires yesterday, and it's the most fertile ground for deploying a democracy on the blockchain out there. We are based in New York and in San Francisco. Also, Virgil, a co-founder, he's in Paris. And we did Y Combinator. We are part of the World Economic Forum. We did research for Jigsaw in Google, University of Berkeley. We did a TED Talk. There's a lot of information about Democracy Earth out there. Cool conferences that you can check on YouTube. I got a profile on Wired, which was pretty nice. And we have followers on Twitter, 15,000 subscribers to our mailing list, over 1,000 GitHub stars, 2,500 members on Slack. And this is how to reach out. That's Democracy Earth in 5 minutes.
It was about 7 minutes, but yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
So, based on the fact that this is supposed to be, breaking down a white paper, I went through the 2 white papers you have. So the smart contract white paper and the token white paper. And we'll start with the smart contract white paper. But getting into that, I feel like this project has been around for a while, and I've read about it before. So could you kind of just give me the history, of how you got here, and is this a pivot? Is this something new, or has this kind of been the goal all along?
It's been an evolutionary process from my own personal point of view. This project started for me, or at least this exploration of the intersection of democracy and the internet, started for me in 2012 when in Argentina, where I am from, along with some colleagues and friends, we started a political party called Partido de la Red, or the Net Party. The ideology of our political party is to have candidates for Congress that will always vote in Congress according to what people tell them online how to vote. We ran for one election in 2013. We got 1% of the votes. We also got the Secret Service police infiltrating party meetings. I got personal threats all the time. I got asked to bribe a federal judge. So long story short, politics is extremely corrupt. In 2015, we get a call from Y Combinator. They invite us, after the experience of doing politics in Argentina, to think about democracy from a technological point of view. And that's when we started Democracy Earth. We started in California, in San Francisco. I lived there for 2 years, then moved to New York. That's why we're based in New York and in San Francisco. And since 2015, we've been researching the intersection of blockchain and voting. How blockchains can be useful, not strictly for voting or not strictly for replacing e-voting machines. I don't believe in e-voting machines. What we are really all about is figuring out how to do a new model that makes the existing model obsolete, a parallel polis, how we can bring a democracy over the internet that can engage people to participate online. And the real challenge after many years of researching this space is that it boils down to figuring out how we formalize humans on blockchains. If we're able to have a decentralized index of self-sovereign identities that we can effectively prove that they are human participants, preventing civils, then that resource, that public resource, is the backbone that can lead to a global democracy, universal basic income, peer-to-peer lending, all kinds of social applications that at the stage of blockchain networks are right now, most of them designed around machines, not around humans, they're not able to fulfill. If you look at the most successful company in the web era, it's Facebook. And the reason that Facebook was successful was because they were able to formalize humans on the web. Now, that led to an Orwellian scenario that we're all suffering right now with memes as presidents. But the challenge is how we can make this in a decentralized way.
So you touched on the go-to-market strategy a little bit. It sounds like, based on your experience in politics, that seems like a very lofty goal, and that seems like something where I would be very skeptical on getting there. So could maybe you just talk a little bit more about where you plan on starting and where you plan on ending up?
So, because we have this, we care about working with communities like Venezuela. Our CTO is Venezuelan. I'm from Argentina. We do pay a lot of attention to students, activists in universities, in different contexts. It's interesting to experiment with this type of governance tools. But this year, we started focusing specifically on crypto networks. Governance is the main topic, or one of the main topics in the blockchain industry all across the board. And what we want to do with Democracy Earth is simply represent the voice of those who stand for democracy in crypto networks. If you like decentralization, I'm pretty sure that you would like democracy, and we can have an argument about that. So right now, we started with Blockstack. We are providing the governance platform for the community of Blockstack to allocate the subsidies to the developers that are building on top of that network. And we are focused, we're in conversations with Zeppelin, we're starting working with Decentraland. All of these networks have huge needs. They have multiple stakeholders. They want to have an influence on the roadmap. Developers need to understand where those who have a stake in those networks are standing on different issues. And we are starting to, our focus right now is working with other crypto networks and provide a tool that helps the voice of the community find a feasible route to express themselves.
So just to be clear, I think the way I understand it is working with these blockchain projects right now, it's not necessarily you providing all of the governance, but it's more so you providing some sort of system to prove that people are people and help these projects run their own governance systems. Is that correct?
Yeah. Our philosophy is to provide a toolkit that can adapt to your governance needs. In the case of Decentraland, for example, the main way they are doing voting right now is with a proof of stake, and you vote with your token balance. You do off-chain voting, and you simply demonstrate with a signature the balance that you have on your wallet. And it makes sense for these type of communities that where those who have more stake in land or in mana, in the case of Decentraland, have a higher voice than other participants in the networks. Thinking long term, what we want to do with our token is to build this graph that is able to, using a reputational algorithm and proofs that we want these proofs to be private. They can be completely private proofs that you can just share privately with other validators in the network, but to validate that the person requesting an ERC 725, which is the standard for identity, is effectively a human participant in the network. Thinking long term, our goal, as we learn more from the governance practices that we are implementing, and it's not just crypto networks, we're also doing pilots in countries where they're facing elections and important political issues. As we learn, our goal long term is build, be able to signal human participants while not revealing publicly the public identity or the private identity of the person.
So I guess we'll get a little bit into the tokens, because I think that is a big focus of the way this technology works. And I want to start with the ERC 725, because I think people are familiar with some of the Ethereum standards, like ERC 20, ERC 721. Could you, I'm very curious how you actually prove, if you prove someone is a human or you prove someone is not a machine on the system, and it becomes this ERC 725, it becomes this tokenization of that. So could you kind of just quickly explain, how you verify that a person is a person in the first place and how that becomes a token?
So this is a very good question and a very tricky one. I always use the example of my daughter's birth certificate. If you actually Google "meet the blockchain dad" or "blockchain dad," you will find an article from CoinDesk with me on how I did her birth certificate. So for this case, I did something that we now refer to as a Turing impossible proofs, a kind of proof that it cannot be processed by a machine. It cannot be processed by an artificial intelligence. It's a proof that requires fundamentally to be acknowledged by a human actor. So in the case of my daughter's birth certificate, it's a video. Videos are still complex enough for machines not to be able to properly interpret what's going on. And in this video, I'm just filming myself, claiming I'm her father, my wife as her mother, two witnesses, my mother and my mother-in-law, all of them stating their identity. And what we do with that video file, that can be a completely private file that I can share to others privately if I never want to make this proof public. But what I need to is, what we do with that video file is we generate a hash. And that hash is what goes into the blockchain. The video can remain private, but the hash will validate, as long as it's in the blockchain, that the contents of that video have not been corrupted and that it was shot in that moment of time where the hash is finally on-chain. In the case of my daughter's birth certificate, that demo was done using the Bitcoin blockchain. What we want to push the community to do as we deploy our network on the mainnet is to use the vote token to vote specifically on these proofs of humanity. Whether those proofs, the content of the video itself or the Turing impossible proof is public or private, that's up to every person to how they reveal that proof. But what goes into the public network is the hash itself. With the token, we want to build the edges of this graph. And the challenge is to calculate the relevance of each node in the graph using a reputational algorithm. We like the idea of using PageRank, very successful reputational algorithm. So those who have a lot of trust in the network can use that high amount of trust for newcomers to have a quick validation. And as long as you meet the threshold required from this reputational algorithm, then we'll mint an ERC 725. Or if you have already an existing ERC 725, we'll provide the checker to the claim of, are you human? And that's it. It's just having this passport that has this stamp that says, this person is a human being. The challenge is to avoid machines. That's why Turing impossible proofs, something that machines cannot process, and avoid having an identity holding a civil, holding many identities in the network. Those are the two key things we need to prevent.
So I totally get the 725, and I get why that needs to exist. And I guess this is probably the question, like Nick said, everyone will ask. But in terms of you selling a token, A, how will that be distributed? And B, why would I want to hold that token? And I think it's the vote token, so I think it's the ERC20. So what is the purpose of that? And if I were actually purchasing that, what would I get out of it?
So with the ERC20, we are, it's obviously a governance token. We believe that for political transactions or for decisions being voted on a blockchain, we want to avoid as much as possible our network from being a survey platform. Twitter and Facebook, they are fantastic survey platforms that gather information for advertisers. We believe that the like interaction or the retweet interaction that happens in traditional social media should carry value. That's why we believe that we need to do an ERC20 that is able to express value, replacing the like function we see on Facebook for a practical vote. That's why we like the idea of using an ERC20. Now, the challenge, the first purpose of the network itself is to vote on validating participants in the network itself. Being able to vote who is a human actor or who isn't a human actor. We want to start small because we know how quickly things can run havoc, and we want to be very cautious on every step as we understand better the pros and cons of different algorithms to compute the tallying of voting, especially when it comes to generating the ERC 725s. But that said, thinking long term, one thing that is really interesting in our view is that if we are able to have a trusted graph of human participants, and we are pretty sure that there are no civils and that there are no bots in that graph, then it means that we can do a token that is collateralized with human time. As long as there are no fake participants in the network, our own time existing, throughout, our own personal real time in life can actually be computed, and we can do a token that is backed by human time. So we can have ERC 725s burning elapsed time in exchange for tokens. And this is further along into a roadmap, but this is a way that we can effectively implement universal basic income at a very low cost.
All right, very interesting, very heady stuff. I know it's a lot to fit into 30 minutes. So check out the site, check out the white papers. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eric and Santi. Governance, one of the most tricky aspects of blockchains at the moment. For those of you who are just joining us, welcome to the first ever Deal Room. This is an experimental format that we're trying out for the first time today. And the whole idea is to get some of the best analysts in the space to do a live teardown of a white paper.